Right. Okay. Yeah, we've got a level there. It's very green. Green is good. Okay, so where were we? Right. So at UEL, we've got, last time I checked, 375 Macs, and I'll give you a little bit of a history of them. So a couple of years ago, the School of Arts and Digital Industries, where I work, managed them. When we moved to this site, we had them split across 2 different networks. The network at Docklands had more machines. It was OS 10 Snow Leopard based, and it had thousands and thousands of OD user accounts on it. It was starting to fall apart a bit. At USS, we were running Mountain Lion. Again, OS 10 server, about 300 user accounts here, 85 clients. But again, separate networks. At USS, I was looking after the Macs. I managed to get Deploy Studio and Monkey, and later on Auto PKG running and updating lots of software automatically, and I was very proud of that. But there was a lot of disparity, and overall, it was kind of messy. So during the summer of 2014, the Mac estate moved to IT services and integrated with Active Directory. It's managed with Casper now as well. So our position in ADI now is a stakeholder. We look after the more specialist bespoke needs for our Mac users within the school, me being music. So at USS, just to break down what we've got some Mac labs, post-production edit suites, a couple of recording studios, and a few other bits and pieces, including 30 staff machines here. So this quote was really poignant for me. One of our lecturers made this a long time ago, so it shows how long I've been here. And they said, and I'll read it out, students should be able to walk into the studio, switch everything on, and just get on with making music. And I thought that's a really good philosophy for me to adopt in trying to make our facilities accessible. So they don't come in, switch things on, have to configure stuff. It should just work straight away. But as we know with anything creative on a Mac, it's not that easy. Take music out and substitute that for photography, video, any weird creative endeavor. Yeah, you struggle. So specifically, I'm going to talk about music software, not configuring all the hardware in the studios. That's a whole massive thing in itself. And again, this applies to any kind of software. Looking at packages, if the vendor gives you a package and not an app bundle, you pass the first hurdle there. Anyone still deal with VISE installers? Nasty. You can't do anything with those yet. We still get them. Packages might run scripts that assume the user's logged in. So it means we can't deploy them with the management system when the Mac's at the login window. Yeah, we all know that one. And often other weird stuff. So has anyone ever encountered a software package where the files that package installs are not in the package, they're somewhere else on the original disk image that the package lives on, that kind of thing. So all these nasty, yucky things. And there's me saying, I'm not a Mac admin, and they've given me this thing to install, and I have no formal IT training. And it's horrible. Once you do get the package installed, you're onto licensing. And every vendor seems to do it differently. So a lot of vendors are now moving to this cloud-based licensing stuff. But it means you have to go onto the machine the software is installed to, log into their licensing thing, and authorize the software for that machine. Some software I've dealt with authorizes a license just for the user that's logged in. So in our AD environment, that doesn't work. Then you've got the physical protection stuff. So anyone worked with iLocks or dongles, license keys that you have to have physically plugged into the machine? Okay, so again, once you've installed the software, got the licenses sorted out, with the likes of, I guess, Adobe do this as well, and Avid, they decide that their applications will use preferences based on their own thoughts, and not Apple's property list system. So forget MCX, forget profiles. You run their application for the first time, and it wants to download more stuff. GarageBand, Logic do it. Nasty. If you got networked home areas, forget it. your students can't, or your users have trouble making projects and saving them on networked home areas. You get all sorts of problems. I said this other one about external hardware to configure. So that's more with the music stuff. You might have MIDI controller keyboards, audio interfaces, etc. That's got to work with the software you're installing. So you've got to find ways to set that up too. I end up saying that, you know, why? And you might go to the vendor and contact them and say, please, you know, have you got any documentation for deploying this stuff en masse or centrally managing its preferences? Or, you know, think of us people in, I guess, enterprise situations. If you do actually get a reply from them, it's a polite version of this. They do not care. Which really, really makes this hard, because that's what I want to achieve. So what do? We become him. I'm going to thank Sean for this, because he put the idea in my head. He was talking to someone a few months back and mentioned Inspector Clouseau. So start thinking like a detective, unpick these bits and pieces. And I'm going to tell you or share things I've found that have helped me to deal with nasty software. So first of all, unpicking a nasty installer, or finding out what a nasty application does. Who's used FS Eventer? Is everyone familiar with that? Does anyone not know what FS Eventer is? Brilliant, I don't have to say what it is. Suspicious Package, anyone heard of this? Or anyone not used it? Okay, Suspicious Package is wicked. It's a quick view plugin, and you select a package, hit spacebar, and it tells you what that package installs and shows you the scripts that are in the package. So if you've been using Pacifist before, this is a lot quicker. It doesn't let you extract stuff, but it's a really good way to peek inside. Pacifist, moving on. Yep. Everyone familiar with that? Anyone not? That's good. It's been around forever. Charles Proxy. Anyone not heard of Charles Proxy? Okay, Charles Proxy, when you run it, it basically tells you all the IP addresses, internet sites, etc., that software on your Mac is currently accessing. So when GarageBand or Logic is downloading extra packages, it tells you where they're coming from, so you can grab them yourself, you can get the URLs. So that's quite useful. And Jamf Composer. Anyone not familiar with Jamf Composer? Sorry, Graham, I apologize for mentioning that as well. Jamf Composer is Jamf's packaging tool, but it does this thing called snapshots. So it takes a before and after image of the file system, during which you install your bit of software, and then it shows you what's changed. And it allows you to actually package the changes up. So that's a nice, quick and easy thing, but it has its pitfalls. So my packaging and testing toolbox. So what I use to actually package software if I need to repackage software. White box packages, does everyone know that one? That's a nice freebie. So if you don't use Jamf Composer, that's a really good one to use, and it can do a lot of stuff Jamf Composer can't. Auto PKG, anyone not using it? I assume that's had loads of publicity now, so that's a really good one. That gets some of the software that I don't like and delivers it to me automatically, which is great. Anyone heard of Package Keeper? Not heard of Package Keeper? That's a script. If you run this and then go into the App Store or launch your application, if your application or the App Store downloads a package, it sees that coming in, and it will copy it to your desktop. It creates a hard link. So it's a bit like what you do with Charles Proxy, but more automated. So that's really useful. So for grabbing all the content from Logic or something like that. Text Wrangler, just a really nice text editor. And VMware Fusion. And who uses VMs here, virtual machines? Anyone not? Okay, so I don't need to say why VMs are brilliant for testing. They're fantastic. And snapshots and all that kind of stuff. Lovely. Okay, so now I'm going to just talk about how I unpicked a particular bit of software, Pro Tools 11 from Avid. So what you get from Avid is 2 disk images, one that's got the Pro Tools installer on it, and the other one that's this thing called the Air Creative Collection, not to be confused with Adobe Air or Creative Cloud. Anyone who hasn't heard of Avid or Pro Tools immediately assumes that's Adobe. So first of all, looking inside Pro Tools, Inside the disk image, you've got this package that installs Pro Tools. That's fantastic. Have given us an installer package. Nice. Got some other folders as well. So there's a few other bits and pieces. There's some drivers for HD hardware, and also some codecs if you're using other Avid video editing tools and you want Pro Tools to support the videos it produces. Those two install and deploy just fine, so I'm not going to talk about those. What I'm going to talk about is the Pro Tools 11 package. That's a suspicious package for anyone who hasn't seen it. That's what you get when you hit the spacebar in QuickView. And fantastic, we can see that this package just installs the application bundle. And there's a script. And in fact, there's more than one script. And for some reason, Avid have decided to write their scripts for their packages in Perl. And so I look at that, and I do not have a clue. I don't know what that means. So this install utils thing, and it says copyright 2006 up the top as well. So, yeah. So if I don't know what it is, I'll ignore it for now. But looking at the pre-install script, that's in Perl as well. But I can read that bottom bit. Can everyone see that reasonably clearly? Just by reading that, I can kind of work out that this installer will look for an existing version of Pro Tools in the applications folder, and if it's there, it deletes it. And it's this execute command RMRF, so I guess it's calling bash to do it. Why didn't they write the whole thing in bash? I don't know. Okay, so that's what this package does. Because I'm not too sure about this other stuff, I may as well do a snapshot in Composer just to see if anything else lands on the file system. And luckily, nothing does. We've just got the app bundle. So that's what you get in Composer after you've done a snapshot. It tells you what's happened. So far, so good. Okay, it's deployed. And I know for a fact that that package will deploy properly from Casper and Monkey and other management systems nice and easily. Let's open the app up on the machine. What's the user going to get when they run this thing for the first time? Hey. Privileged helpers. Anyone not know what a privileged helper is? So, great, so I don't need to. I will tell you anyway. My understanding of a privileged helper is it's a little tool that an application uses to get root privileges, so it can do naughty things to your system without you being an admin user. So you run Pro Tools and it wants to do this. Okay, let's start FS Inventor or Composer. So let's look at what this does just to see what happens. So you put your credentials in. First of all, okay, let's do it. So what more does it do? It installs this thing, Pace, iLok drivers. But iLok provide drivers in a separate package from the website anyway that are more up to date than this. So again, that's a bit redundant. That's fine. And then it does all of that stuff as well. So I've tried to annotate this. So it installs some fonts. It installs its plugins. And it puts a few bits and pieces in the users directory, like preferences and bits like that, which I guess isn't part of what the privilege helper does. So my question is, since Avid packaged Pro Tools, why doesn't the package do it? Doesn't make any sense. And I'm guessing the answer is maybe they're lazy, because previous versions of Pro Tools just included the app bundle in a disk image, and the app bundle would want to do its privileged helper and everything else. They packaged it for some reason, and got their package to remove previous versions of Pro Tools, but didn't think to make it do the rest. Okay, so we come up with a pre-install script, which just says, if Pro Tools is there, remove it. This is if you're going to repackage the original package. So, I mean, in this environment, unfortunately, IT told me to repackage it because they didn't want me to just give them the scripts to put into Casper to run before and after the package installed. So I had to make a package and put the scripts into that. I know in Monkey you can have separate pre and post install scripts that aren't part of the package too, so this is useful there. Okay, and this is the post install script. So I learned a lot making this, and my original inspiration from this came from a chap called Ryan Manley. And essentially what he gets the script to do is to copy the privileged helper tool out of the Pro Tools application binary into its correct location on your system drive. And then, I know you could copy the plist over as a file, but he used plist buddy to create the plist and populate its keys. I decided I want to learn defaults, so I rewrote that and did this. Does that make sense to most people? Hopefully these slides will be available afterwards as well. So this does Avid's work for them. Okay, so the Air Creative Collection. Yeah, I had to put a GIF in. I won't go into as much detail as I did with the Pro Tools installer. This was different in its problems. 62 install scripts. And they're all Perl. It turns out it's a collection of lots of other packages. And this thing here sets off alarm bells because the package is 230 megs and it somehow lays down over 4 gigs. So it's trying to install files that aren't in the package. They're on the disk image the package comes with. I don't know why vendors do it. Does anyone? Is there a real, I mean, it's an honest question. Is there a real reason for it? Because I can't understand. But that's what we're dealing with. And there are 3 ways of getting this one to work. One way was inspired by Rich Troughton's blog, where he repackaged an application called LabVIEW, and I decided to call it the YoDog method. Are you all familiar with the YoDog thing? We put something in something so you can do something while you do something. It's like a recursion. So essentially what that means is you put the disk image into a payload-free package as a resource, and in your package you have a post-install script that mounts the disk image, runs the installer on the machine, and then quits out. So the package runs from its kind of native environment where it thinks it should be anyway. So you don't actually really repackage anything. You deliver it in a Trojan horse, so to speak, using that kind of euphemism. That worked really well when we were using Monkey here. That's fantastic. I learned a lot by doing that process. But Caspar had problems deploying it, so I had to go back to the drawing board. You could snapshot the Air Creative Collection, which is what I did for Caspar, I have to confess, because I didn't have time to look into it properly. So again, quick and easy, but one of the problems with snapshots is if those scripts that Avid have put in do something really important, chances are, if you capture it in a snapshot and deploy it to machines, you might not get the same result. And also, snapshotting can, I mean, for me, it's a really tempting, lazy option. And again, for the reasons above, you need to really thoroughly test your packages if you snapshot. And you also need to be quite familiar with the file system on OS X, and because snapshots packages tend to capture a load of other crap that isn't part of your install. Temporary files and things like that tend to get picked up, so you have to weed them out. I've been recently told that in Monkey 2, if you import the disk image that Creative Collection comes on, it works straight away. But we don't have Monkey here anymore, so I can't test it. Okay, you install the Air Creative Collection, you load up one of its instruments in Pro Tools, and you think, well, I'm going to make some music, I'm going to do something. You get this as the next thing, so they're putting more and more hurdles in your way. You hit browse, you find the location for this instrument's content. Fantastic. That location is saved in a plist. So for some reason, Avid used plist to save preferences for their virtual instruments, but they don't use plist to save preferences in Pro Tools. I don't know why. But anyway, so our users do not want to see this. So we have to do Avid's work for them again. And just another post-install script using defaults just to write some default preferences in /library. So you know if you put a put plist in /library. They apply as defaults for your applications that use plist as preferences. So we put that in a post-install script, and it makes sure that those instruments can pick up their content in the right locations. And we have to set correct permissions for them as well. Yeah, so managing proprietary preferences, the way I do it, and I'd love to hear if anyone else has got any better suggestions, because I'm sure there are, is I open up Pro Tools, I set it up the way I want it to be set up, so I'll make sure it's got the correct audio interface selected and things like that. Control surfaces are configured, all the bits and pieces that our students are going to use in the studio, that experience of switching it on and it working. I grab its preference files, and that is what they look like. They're all these weird binary blobs, and there's a text file as well. Stick them in the user template. But that's only going to work for new users. Existing users don't get those settings. So if I need to change something, that's not going to help anyone. But this is one thing where I really like Caspar, and it made it really easy for me, who, as I say, I'm not an proper Apple admin. I use the fill user template and fill existing users features. Everyone knows what that is, or anyone not use Caspar? Okay, so fill user template, fill existing users. In Composer, you can make a package, but save it as a disk image instead of a package, and you put files into that disk image that are in your home directory, and then you stick them into Caspar, and in Caspar can deploy them with these options. And what it will do is it will somehow, I'm not sure how, copies those files out into every user's home directory on the machine you're deploying to, and also the user template as well. So I found that really useful. Oh, we've got an iLok as well. So the iLok is that hardware key. You have to authorize each iLok manually, and I had 56 of them to do. They'll probably want more soon if they expand. I didn't find any way to automate that, unfortunately. But I did devise a way to secure them to iMacs, so we didn't have to give them out to students who wanted to use them. So in our labs downstairs, we've got some nice security for those iLoks. And the cost of securing them is about £10 a machine. So if anyone's interested in that, I'll show you after this. Okay, one nice little gem, and again, that came from my ex-colleague Sean over there at the back. Do you remember this one, Sean? It was really useful. So this is my kind of last resort thing that I do. If I'm deploying a bit of software that does require you to manually log into the machine and do something, at least I can fire up something like Apple Remote Desktop, and I think this might work in Caspar as a script. Run that on each client, changing the username and password to a local admin user, and the machines will just log in. And if you're really determined, I guess you could get system events to emulate all the keystrokes that would be required to input licensing information for software as well. But it's quite long-winded, and I guess it's only worth doing if you've got hundreds of machines to deploy. Yeah. And there are some links to some articles I've had published on the Pro Tools Expert website for dealing with these situations. And my kind of learnings with regards to scripting are going up on my Gist. I've just started getting into GitHub as well. Okay, and some more really helpful resources, things I've turned to help me. I'm sure most of you are aware of all this stuff. Freenode, the IRC channels, OS X Server, and Jamf Nation. Is everyone here using Slack now? Who isn't? Okay, there's a Slack Mac admins community which is gaining momentum, so please join that. Really nice blogs, including Graham's and Ben's. I say GitHub, and I mention Hannes on there because he's got this really great script that downloads all the Logic content for you, all the packages in one go. And Mac Enterprise, of course. So if you do get a nasty bit of software to deploy, my philosophy is be brave, don't be scared, become Inspector Clouseau. Ask people, reach out, and nag software vendors. And if all else fails, table flip. So I'd love to hear if anyone's got any questions or discussion points to add. Yeah.
Some of that stuff for individual users, could you do that using login scripts? Copying the files into
yes, I used to do that before we had Caspar. I didn't use the user template. So there was a little AppleScript application that would have the files installed in a directory in like library application support, UEL or wherever, and it would copy those to the user's preferences folder when they logged in. But then every time they logged in, they'd get a default set of preferences. So the problem was if they customized anything, they couldn't really, or they couldn't for the next session. Yeah. Anyone else?
I was going to ask, in a similar vein, though, with the Caspar tools for creating or filling out user templates, how does it deal with people's existing preferences? Is it just stomp all over them, or is it smart than that?
Yeah, so if there are any files in the package you've created, to my knowledge, someone else might be able to, Darren's nodding there. So.
Okay.
Yeah, to my knowledge, any files that already exist, they're wiped over, so yeah. Be careful with it, yeah.
All right, cool. So on that vein, there's a tool called Outset that Joe Chilcott made, which can run scripts once for a user. So it won't keep tramping over. I use that for default preferences, which is set in home directory.
Does Caspar have policy option that says run once for a user, or is it just run once on the machine? Yeah.
There's a feature request on it's like number 17.
Yeah.
Once per user per computer, yeah.
Yeah.
Because what the JSS will do will realise that Bob has had the policy run once, and that's for all computers. So it's not once per computer per user, it's once per user. So
you look into another machine, it might do it.
Yeah. It's a really old feature request.
Okay, I think I've massively overrun, so I'm really sorry. But thank you very much. Cheers. Get this thing off. You're right with that.
Sort of.
How's it?
My computer being shit. Yeah. Don't bring our Windows.
Sorry?
Don't bring Windows.
Demo gods. Did you plug in before?
Yeah, and it worked fine. So I think it's just being Windows. And of course, I don't have an SSD. there we go.
Yeah. You're all right. Yeah, you've got a feedback.
Yeah. When it eventually loads. There we go. Shun the non-believer.
Is this how you survived on local?
Come on. This is obviously
Yeah.
Yeah, we've been using it for about a year. We get now after 6 months. What they price it for?
So what's the
So it's fine if you're actually using it. The integration with something from GitHub flowing into it. That's good if you're actually using it for work. Yeah, if you have over a number of people.
yeah? Because I don't know, like
Yeah, we've got a few clients using it.
okay. There we go. Finally got there. We're just going to jump right in. Basically, .local shit, and I became an alcoholic of it. This is was my average week. Start off slow, and then slowly get into the week. Just want more and more alcohol. Wednesday, get there, and Thursday you're just chugging it down, and then Friday. But yeah, so this is going to be just quite quick, easy, straightforward, more on the network side of things rather than app side. So who am I? My name's Richard Ashton. I am a second line support analyst for the White Company. I'm not a Mac specialist or anything of that sort. I'm not actually alcoholic. Feels like that sometimes. And I've got a really bad sense of humor, and I want to be this guy. So I work for these guys, the White Company. We are a multi-channel retailer. We sell expensive stuff to housewives. That's pretty much it. So what I'm going to be talking about is basically my experience with Windows domains and OS X, and how it doesn't work all the time. What issues I've run into at the White Company with our domain, and trying to actually get them to work with Macs, and how I fix them. So, what is .local? Literally Hitler. So .local, for those that don't know, is a private, it's usually used on private networks internally for host names and domain suffixes. It's used primarily by multicast DNS and local DNS, known as zero config, which basically means computer here, printer over there, they just talk, and it works. Bonjour is Apple's implementation of multicast DNS, which also works most of the time. And it's, as I said, it's used to allow computers to speak to each other without any config. Bonjour has been causing issues since 2002 when it was first introduced, known as Rendezvous, when they very quickly got a lawsuit taken against them for the name Rendezvous. And it seems every version of OS 10 since 10.2, they've changed how Bonjour works. Like with 10.10, they swapped out MDNS responder with that piece of shit. So why is it so bad? It's not actually that bad. In a home environment, small environment, it's great because you don't need DNS servers, you don't need DHCP, you don't need all that crap. But if you're going to use it as a domain, you need rock solid infrastructure. So you need your DNS to have all the correct state of authority. So you need to put that right at the top. Your AD forest needs to be tidy. How many of you here use Active Directory as your main authentication? Okay, so most of you. Yeah, so if it's a mess, which ours is, it doesn't work. And domain controllers need to actually be live and not turned off, which they were. As I said, Apple likes to break Bonjour. So bonus points to whoever can tell me why November 2015 is up there. No. So 1st of November 2015, certificate authorities will no longer be issuing SSL certificates for .local. So if you have certificates, they will expire on the 1st of November, which is not good. So you have to start using your own internal certificates and know how to get those deployed around the business. So can anyone tell me what's wrong with that? This is the real issue. That's the underscore. So Apple does not allow you to bind Macs to a domain which have an underscore. That's our actual domain at the moment. So our domain is a Windows 2000 domain. It's now running on Server 2003 rather than 2000, but it's much of a muchness. And basically, this is what I want to do the guy that made it. If it plays, oh, went past it. Oh, I've gone way past it. Yeah, that's what I wanted to go to the guy that created that domain. So we're in the process of moving from an underscore domain to one without it, which is still .local. We need to be able to authenticate between both domains. So there needs to be a cross-domain trust relationship. It needs to be smooth for the users. It needs to allow our storage platform for the Macs to actually work and function, and it doesn't break is the most important thing. So what do? We use this wonderful tool called Centrify. I got suggested this to me from Greg Neagle because I think I was making everyone bored with me spamming, how do I fix this? And basically, it allows you to bind a Mac to a domain with an underscore, which is good in my book. The Apple built-in Active Directory plugin doesn't work with cross-domain trust relationships. If you bind it to a domain, twc.local in this example, it won't see any of the users that have trust to that domain that are in the old domain. You can script it to hell and back because they like their scripts, and it's free. Well, the Express version is. which it's forum support rather than paid support. So it's time to do some scripting. So this is the script that we rolled out using Deploy Studio. We basically had a whole project to get all Macs bound to domain, all Macs, all on the same operating system. Everyone had their Macs wiped, all the same software, all played with Monkey and all that jazz, but it's not about Monkey. And this is the script we use to get it working. And AD join is Centrify's basically tool that gets you to bind. And the reason, if you see this echo here, the reason why we've got that in is that sets Centrify to use Apple's user SID rather than their own. So when we do eventually move to Apple's way of doing things, it won't be as big of a pain. And then it's got these network setups because .local, you kind of need to add those in, otherwise your stuff doesn't work. So it's adding in our 2 domains into the search domains, meaning you can just type in server and it'll just open everything up. And I ran into some issues. We installed Centrify on the server, thinking that would solve all our issues. We can have Active Directory authentication against the Mac server. No, the SMB plugin would crash every 15 minutes. And it's not a crash as in, it just stops. It just stops authenticating. So our Apple reseller, they came in, they had looked through the logs, and they went back to Centrify, and Centrify basically went, oh, you have to pay us money to fix that. So we went, screw it. And so we just set up local network users and just did it that way. So we've gone from 2 different passwords, from a local user on the Mac and a network authentication on Windows servers to network user on the Mac to a local user for the server. So yeah, that will change eventually when we're on the new domain. Users don't simply understand the keychain and updating it. That was fixed by using AD Passmon, which is a wonderful tool. Ben's forked it and made V2, but I didn't need to use the stuff he did, so I just used the original one. I've got a link at the end. Great tool, gives the users like visibility of how long their password's set to expire. Windows, if you have a group policy that is a bit over-eager in security, like we had, due to PCI concerns. I don't know if many of you know what PCI is. But it's basically, it's a sort of like a guidelines to follow to make sure your credit card details don't get stolen. And we're applying these to corporate machines that don't handle credit cards. So basically, because we're moving to a new domain, we're not making any changes to the old one. And so we just moved them all out, all the computers connecting to the server, just moved them to new OU in AD and just left it like that. And an issue we found with Centrify is if a user's password is set to never expire in Active Directory, Centrify will still think their password's expired and will get them to change their local login password, which then fucks up the keychain because it will change their authentication password for all their network details to their new password, which isn't the Active Directory password. Fortunately, that's quite easy because no user in our business should have a password set to never expire. So just unticked it and it's fine. And after all of that, I was like, yeah, everything's working, awesome, which is good because it is. But that's not really going to be the end for me on the Mac side of things, because we've we've got to actually get all the Macs over to twc.local, which will mean unbinding them from Centrify and then binding them to twc.local with the Apple built-in plugin, and then working with DSCL, DSCL, to figure out how to script changing the UIDs so when they log in, they still log into the same folder, even though it will be a different UID. Do you guys know what UIDs are? Yeah, that's fine. I hate Mac Server. It's awful. It doesn't work. So my plan is to basically install ES6i on it, so we can have VMs. So either we just Linux, or we actually go Graham's way of containerizing everything in Docker and doing it that way. And my big plan, I don't know if you guys know what Salt or ServiceNow are, but Salt, for those that don't, is essentially configuration management. You basically say, I want all of you guys to do this, and it's very command line intensive. And ServiceNow is a service management tool. So if you've got a ticket system, it's essentially that. But it integrates with Salt. So you can basically, someone requests a ticket, I want this software installed. It will then say to Salt, oi, this computer, it wants Acrobat installed. It will then tell Monkey, if it's a Mac, to add Acrobat to the manifest for that machine, and then it will install and have some holiday, which I don't have. So we've gone on Slack already, but seriously, come over to Slack. It's awesome. That's the short link. We like GIFs. And who uses RSE? He still does. Essentially, that's pretty much all I used was Google, Centrify Express, Kung Fury for pretty much all of those GIFs. And at the beginning, IRC, and just annoying everyone by asking questions about domains. And there we go. Any questions?
There's a question on IRC.
Yes. Okay.
So Ilya Jordan was asking, if you're moving the domain, why are you still staying .local?
Basically, that decision was made by someone who used to work with Ben at Pentland. Ben, I think you know him, you call him like the IT cowboy.
Yeah, the cowboy,
Yeah, he goes in, fixes stuff, and then disappears into the sunset. But we might not go to twc.local. We are actually removing all of our servers to a hosted MSP, so we won't manage any of them. So they will probably tell us, no, don't use .local, it's shit. And I will go, yes. And then we'll use probably thewhitecompany.com or .net or something. Any more questions?
Yeah. Why Salt versus something like Public Chef?
Salt's a certified partner. That's pretty much it. We like our certified partners. I don't care. They much for muchness. They all do the same thing.
What is Salt?
So the best way to describe it, say you have 10 Linux servers. They all run exactly the same thing, different IPs, different host names, all over the world. You have a security patch come out for a critical issue, and you need to patch them all straight away. Because they're set up with Salt in its console, you just say, I want to deploy this package, go. It's basically Monkey, sort of, but for enterprise, but it's a lot more command line intensive than Monkey is, because it's for Linux admins, and Linux admins love the command line. Anything else? Is that me? I tried to make it quick. Okay. Tried to make it quick because beer. The pub is calling. Oh, I'm on LG Watch, Android. I'm a fully non-believer.
Thank you. Right. Done. Okay. Cool. Thank you. Where's the clicker? In there. Nice one. Right. Hi. Gosh, just lights. You can't see anything. So I'll keep this quick, so now we're now eating into pub time. So just a quick introduction to start off with. So I'll be talking about iBeacons. A couple of quick introductions. I'm the top one. I don't know why I put my face on there because the face is here, but that's me. So I'm technical director at ANSYS. Just to mention Darren Wallace, who's sitting somewhere over there, just because he's here and I thought I'd point him out. And someone else at ANSYS called Richard Mallion, who's our CTO. He contributed to one of the final slides, or final last couple of slides. So I'll just give him a quick mention. So what I'll be talking about is a few technical points about beacons, ranges, UIDs, and that kind of thing, just to set the groundwork. I don't know if you already have read about it or played with it and know about it, but we'll just cover that. A bit about Caspar integration, just because it's got a few nice tricks that it does, and then a few other bits and pieces to wrap up. Has anyone here actually tried iBeacons? I can't actually see you at all, but I can just see hands. Has anyone actually deployed it, like in the real world? One. And what are you using it? What are you using it for?
Just phone tracking, just basic stuff.
Oh, okay.
See what customers come in. It's built into our football counters.
Right. Okay. Cool. So, okay. So first couple of just technical bits, just to set the groundwork. These are kind of terms that get chucked around. So it's got this thing called ranges. iBeacons, they know how far away you are from a beacon. So it's got three categories: immediate, near, and far, and can tell whether you're moving towards or moving away from the beacon. So all sorts of possible use cases for that, sort of internal GPS and different things like that. So the technology's there, that just now needs the software behind it. Something that's quite important to understand is the UUID's majors and minors. So this is actually slightly backward in, I don't know if it's just the way my mind works, but the UUID is, I assume that would be the device UUID, but it's not, it's the other way around. You set a UUID for all of your beacons. The major number, you can use, that's just so UUID is a standard UUID. The major number could be anything from 1 to 65,000, and so you pick a number, like 2 or whatever you want it to be. If you give multiple beacons the same major number, they're grouped together. Okay. Then the minor number is unique per beacon. Caspar, interestingly, just ignores all of that and has a couple of checkboxes that kind of bypass the whole thing, but that's something else. So a quick demo of this Caspar integration, and this is just good to show some of the uses for IT purposes, rather than having a shopping app on the phone that gives you offers and things as you're walking around, or a lot of people talk about a museum app where you walk around and get told about events. This is more allowing you to do IT things using iBeacons. So I used the Two Canoes iBeacons. It's a nice, easy one. It's USB app, so you just plug it into your laptop, and it's good for trying it out. I don't know if it's actually good in the real world, but Richard, what beacons are you using? Do you know?
Shopper track.
Shopper. Okay, so just
Yeah.
A
it's built in.
specific one, yeah. Okay, so the Two Canoes one comes with a little app called Blue Station. I'm not doing. I'll admit, I'm not doing live demos, so just clicking. Pre-recorded. So it's just a little app. You can click through, click on UID, generate a UID, and then eventually it applies that to the beacon. Okay. So it's just a little app to actually set up the beacon, setting minor numbers and major numbers and so on. If you want to have your own UUID, you can obviously just use UID gen. The number doesn't have to be a specific number. It just once you've got one, that you just use that same UUID for everything. That's kind of the only rule, really. So getting the beacon into the JSS, there's kind of two routes that you can use to do this. One is another app, still from the same company, called Blue JSS, or you can add it straight into Casper, which I'll just come on to in a second. So this little clip is just me adding a beacon into the JSS. So give the beacon a name, give it a UID, give it a major number. Nice and imaginative. Okay. So once I configure the settings, then I plugged in the beacon. So there it appears. And then it configures it and then just applies those settings into the JSS. What that actually looks like, clicking through. So in the JSS, click on the settings, network organization, and then iBeacons are in there. This is from 9.5 and above, for anyone that's using Casper. And then there's the beacon that I added, so with the same settings as you'd expect. Okay, so that's a nice, easy app. If I want to do this manually, you could probably guess, network organization and beacons, click new, and then I'll give it a name. You'll notice these two checkboxes include any major value, include any minor value. So where you're supposed to use the same major value across multiple beacons to group them together, and then individual minor beacons, Jamf kind of just ignore that basically and just give you some checkboxes instead, which is fine, but just be aware of that. So yeah, essentially include any major value kind of means a global beacon, or one across the entire JSS, and then include any minor value, we'll just group them together. Okay. So once I've got a beacon in there, I just want to do something with it. And so this example, first of all, I have to just enable a check. For anyone that hasn't done this before, you have to enable a checkbox in the inventory collection, monitor iBeacon regions. If you don't do that, nothing's going to happen. And if you do play around with this and you think, right, nothing's happening, why is it not working? Then you remember and click that checkbox. Remember, that's not instant. You have to sort of get the machine to check in and stuff before it happens. And then I'll just go ahead and make a policy. So in this example, I just want something that was kind of obvious and quick. So click policies, give it a name. And in this example, I'm just going to apply an icon to the dock or add an item to the dock. Obviously, when we're talking about policies or triggering an event on the machine, this can be used to do anything. It could run a script, install a package, whatever you might want it to do, or apply configuration profiles and so on. One important thing under the custom event, there's an event called beacon state change. So you don't use any of the normal triggers in Cassper. You have to use this one called beacon state change, which it uses to monitor for beacon iBeacons. Okay. So once I've added the actual policy options, the two next bits I need to do, first of all, add a computer or computers to the scope. And then under limitations, if I click add, I'll get an option to click on iBeacons and then add my iBeacon as a limitation. It's the same way you do it with LDAP users in Cassper. You scope something to the machines that you want, and then you limit it based on LDAP user groups and so on. Okay, so that's configured. So on the machine, and just standard Mac, and I've just opened up the Jamf log just so you can kind of see what it puts in there. The machine enters the beacon region, and so it picks up the beacon, sees which one it is, and sees whether that's the right beacon or not. And if it is, then triggers that particular policy. And it added, well, it was that airfoil icon in the dock. You saw the dock reload, so that was it. First time I was trying this when Jamf released this with version 9.5, I was getting slightly inconsistent results, but the later versions, this is getting pretty reliable now. Not sure if I'm brave enough to actually deploy it in the real world, but it's good fun anyway. You can obviously use it for mobile devices as well. So in this example, configuration profile, nice easy one using a web clip. Interestingly, everyone seemed to jump to using a web clip to see if it worked when this feature was first released, and that was the one thing that had a bug and didn't work. So it's like, why isn't this working? But it works now. So I put in some web clip details. I always tick removable because I always use my wife's phone as the guinea pig, and I accidentally put some web clips on her phone and couldn't get them back off again without, anyway. But same idea, you scope it to the devices, click done, then click limitations, and then limit it to the beacon. So essentially, as you've seen, it kind of works as a limitation to running config profiles, policies, that kind of thing. So it kind of applies to almost anything you can do in Cassper. You'll guess what will happen. You plug in the beacon and get away with it. Hooray! Yeah. Okay. So I'm almost done. It's been nice and quick. So a couple of use cases. I was kind of trying to think of things you could do with it. Essentially, it's location-based events on the machine. So you can make things happen when people either go to a location or leave a location. Kind of applications, things like deploying printers seems to come up quite a lot. If you're not using a nice pool printing system and you have different printers scattered about the place, you could have them deploy when someone actually uses their machine in that particular location. Locking iPads into an app, possibly some kind of exam room where you need to use an iPad. You want to make sure they're locked, so they go in the room and it's near the beacon and then locks. Web clips and all sorts of things like that, and retail, obviously. A couple of things some of the things that almost put me off sort of really going for it and deploying them. I want to see someone else do it first and see how it goes. I think the triggers can be a bit slow. Those clips were sped up, and I cut out the delays, but there are little delays. You plug in the beacon and it seems to sit there for ages, and it's probably because I'm watching it. Also, it's radio waves. So if you put the beacon low down and we have 100 people in here, it's not going to work as well as when you were testing it. So because it doesn't pass through bodies quite as easily. So just things to consider. One more thing, couldn't resist. Okay, so obviously I've talked about Cassper so far. If you want to try out beacons but don't have Cassper, there's a couple of other options. There is an option on the Tucanoos website. There's an app called Beacon Launcher, which we found after doing this next thing, but there you go. And it's just an app. You launch it, put in some beacon details, and then you can see it run scripts, and just for the purpose of testing it. We went and just made a small binary that can monitor for iBeacons. And you can tell it to run a script or do whatever you want to do. So you'd launch the binary via a launch daemon, so it's just sitting there listening for beacons. And then if it finds one, run whatever it is, and that script can then do whatever you want. So it could do LP admin or something similar. I'm just using a quick example script that drops a file into user shared to say it's run, because the binary we've got at the moment, it doesn't know to stop. It's kind of relentless, like the Terminator, I suppose. You launch it, it finds the beacon, and it just keeps going and going and going and going. So in the script, I just put something to say and run once and stop. And then just display a message in AppleScript to say something's happened. So I've got our little beacon trigger app running. You can tell we've only just done it because it's got hello world in it. And we leave that running, plug in the beacon, and when the beacon's detected, pops up with a message. But obviously, we substitute that script for whatever else we might want to do. This is something that we've only just made it, and we're going to put it on GitHub for people just to grab, and so you can just use it if you want to try out beacons or you haven't had a chance. If you've got Casper, then you're kind of ready to go anyway. And that's it. So any other things to mention? I did a sort of walkthrough of all this stuff on a blog. The top one's the URL to the blog, but it has all these funny characters in it. So it's AMSYS blog, 7th one down is the iBeacon blog. And 2canoes.com/blue, blue spelt wrong, is the beacon stuff. And that's it. Any questions?
Can you use iBeacons to turn Wi-Fi on and off in that sort of configuration?
Yeah, it can do anything you can do with a script, or you could have it install a configuration profile, run a script. It's literally just a mechanism to run something. It's like think of it like a launch daemon or launch. Yeah, it's just another one.
Based on location, essentially.
Yeah. As soon as it sees that it's in range of the beacon, and obviously, I was talking to the reason I mentioned Richard Mallion at the start is that he wrote it for me, which is just very nice because I don't know Objective-C, so I can't. There's talks of maybe detect if you're walking towards the beacon or walking away from it, or whether it's immediate or near and so on. But for now, it just sees the beacon and just runs, and that's it. So.
What's the range of the beacon then? That sort of thing. So is it one beacon for a room, for example, or it really depends on what you bought?
Yeah, that range, I did have the numbers on that blog. It's got the numbers. The immediate is a couple of inches. The next one's a couple of feet, and then far's wider. I think it possibly could cover a room. If it was a room like this, I'd probably do a couple, maybe just to make sure. But yeah.
But you can wind it down as well, so you can have it really very, very.
Yeah, and actually on the Blue Station ones, they actually have a power thing that you can scale it down and adjust it. So it's someone has to. If I want something to happen when I walk up to that table, then you can have it so it only works when you're within 2 feet of it or something. Obviously, take into account people though. If there was too many people in the room, then it might not. You might need more of them. So in a room like this, I'd be inclined to put them sort of up the top somewhere. So. Anyone else?
What do you think is the cause of the delay? Is it hardware or software?
It's software. It's just the binary. It detects the hardware almost straight away, and because it kept trying to add it as a network adapter on my machine for some reason. So that bit's pretty quick. I think there's a bit of a delay before the Bluetooth really starts transmitting, but after that, I've noticed a good sort of 60-second delay in the Jamf binary and the other ones to actually run, which I think in the real world is probably fine. It's just to be aware that the user gets their laptop, opens it up, it's in range of the beacon. Whatever you want to happen might not happen that split second. So that's all. Okay.
Use it in retail. So your these devices that are coming into the shop. It's people walk into the shop, right? So yes, so they're not pre-configured to accept something from an IP. So what does it do?
So for us, we literally just see how many iPhones are coming in.
Okay. So it's just spotting and
it's just some more metrics.
this
this is broadcasting. Basically, a shopper track device. It's got basically two like beams coming down through the door, the expensive ones. So it'll see you coming in, and then so it knows when you're going in and going out. But marketing team wanted to know what demographics and what devices, because most people have iPhones, so generally better off than people who don't have iPhones. That seems to be the general trend from all these research done. And so they wanted to see whether that was true of our customers in stores and compare it to our website metrics, which is mostly iOS.
A lot of people used to have Wi-Fi, but in iOS 8 or 7, Apple started randomizing MAC addresses.
Yeah.
So that was rendered useless.
Yeah. So Bluetooth is still identifiable as an iOS device. Probably called Graham's
Cool. Okay.
Sorry.
Yep.
Question for the RC. Jemani was wondering if you've seen any equivalent like to GeoHopper for Android devices, or any of the kind of iBeacon stuff maybe for Android.
I don't really do anything with Android personally, but the technology it's not Apple only. But yeah, I don't do anything with Android. I don't know if anyone else has tried. So we were talking about merging iBeacons and Android, effectively. Stunned silence in the room. So it's not an Apple only thing. So certainly possible, but I guess no one's doing it.
How do you use only go
Sorry?
How do you use only go
I think so. Or everyone so if everyone just assume because it's an iBeacon, everyone just assumes it's Apple. I should have probably called it something else, but maybe just Beacon. But anyway, yeah.
And Tom, you were on Slack, which is the
IRC2. Yeah.
Is it morally wrong to put iBeacons on people you don't want to be near?
No. There's an app for that already, isn't there? You got the Find My Friends, and there was another one on the App Store called it was basically the opposite, which I thought was quite amusing. But it's like the most antisocial app going. But, cool. Right.
I'll tell you who will do it.
So you went geofencing?
Yeah.
Yes, you can do the geofencing, but there's also you need to get rolled.
Yeah.
Which is a bit of an issue. So yeah, in
A lot of movement.
within 100 meters. Or,
Yeah. Micro
Someone
location is
who-
what you're talking about here, but
Yeah.
normally with air, what
Nope.
you need to move quite a lot.
I'll go to a loop. Or someone who's got a bit more experience than I do.
It's good to go to the toilet with that.
It's going to have one of those things and it can then do an action.
But they will find you.
Yeah. That's what the rules was. Yeah. We and heat maps. So someone's been looking at maybe that's obviously something after, but yeah, it's just it's quite good.
So on the subject of iBeacons, there's a pretty good talk from Tim Perfett, who runs Two Canoe Software for Penn State last year, and that's on the YouTube, or where the fine conferences are found. Okay, so I'm going to wrap up kind of quickly because the talks were longer, but I think they're great, and that's what I was going to talk about. So, okay, once again, thanks, Neil. This has been great. Everyone on the Slack and the IRC that no one uses says that the sound's been really good, which, to be honest, you'd be really embarrassed if they said it was rubbish, wouldn't they? So that's good.
All right, so thanks to everyone who spoke again, and see I can reuse my slides. So, multitasking. All the talks are fantastic, and I think they're all the better for neither me or Ben speaking, to be honest. So, win. All right, so let's have a quick chat about WWDC. Anyone got anything that they're itching to get off their chests about WWDC? El Capitan. Yeah, it's a dumbass name, isn't it? They're getting worse. It's almost as if Apple want the Windows admins to laugh at us. So, there you go.
What is the German translation?
It would be Das Führer.
Really? That's fantastic. Yeah, for the stream. Apparently, the translation in German is Das Führer. So Richard's gift can be used over and over again. Thing that was most interesting for me was you can assign apps through VPP to a device now. Anyone who's deployed more than 2 iOS devices will have finger numbness, I guess, from typing in the password 500 times. That's pretty cool.
And multinational.
Yes.
Steve got the last week.
Yeah.
So it's a big thing.
Cool. Yeah. And also, what I thought was quite cool was SIP. And when I first saw it, I thought people were talking about VoIP. And I closed IRC again and went back to my hole and rocked quietly in the corner. Because fortunately, I don't do VoIP anymore. I did, and it was painful. So yeah, that system integrity protection. So you can only write, so Apple can say you can't write to some files or delete them, which may mean that any modifications to your user templates will go bye-bye, which means people now can stop doing that and complaining when it goes wrong. And maybe Casper will now stop encouraging that bad practice as well.
But not yet. Still,
No, but we can still cross the fingers.
sorry about
Oh well. Anything else anyone's found that's particularly interesting? Yeah, you can deploy admin accounts now through it, which is pretty cool. That's pretty cool. Yeah, and now like you can prevent login until it's actually finished, which is useful. I don't know why they didn't do that.
You could reduce school deployment to labs and classroom machines, and whether you could do that just with DEP. I'm trying to think it through in my head whether you could set it all up, take the machine out of the box, put it on the desk, and it will come. So no net boot, no imaging, nothing like that, and just DEP.
As long as there's no 802.1x, in which case you're humped. Yeah, and also Apple, you're relying on Apple servers to be up, which they sometimes are. Okay, so Rich Truton has done all the hard work, so we don't have to. We don't have to go all the way over there and spend thousands of bucks. And my wife was amazed when I said people enter a lottery to go to this conference, and then they have to pay to go. She thought it was lunacy, but then she calls herself an IT widow anyway. So there we go. So that is amazing, and you don't need a dev account anymore to access the dev forums. So read that. Sorry?
You need one dev subscription for iOS, OS X, Swift, everything.
Yeah, they did that just after I renewed. All right, so has anyone else got anything to say about WWDC?
The one issue with that all combining is that the Safari devs that make extensions, which we're doing free, now have to pay Apple money to make extensions, and so they're going to stop making extensions for Safari.
There's only about 3 people do that.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's not really a problem, is it? Okay, shift on to the next bit. We meet every quarter. A lot of you have been before, some people I've not seen before, so thank you for coming. We are a bit nomadic. We're looking for someone to host us for our Q4 meeting. So we've had some excellent people. Amsterdam did our first one. Steve at ThoughtWorks did the last one, and see here at the UEL today. So if anyone has a space in their workplace with a screen, and that's all we really need. We're relatively easy to handle. So email me or Ben. We're on the Twitter. If anyone's on the stream has anywhere for us to go as well, we'd really appreciate it. And now the most important bit of the evening, we're going to the pub, which is like just over there. You could jump out the window, but this makes it look a lot worse. It's not the best pub in the world, but they serve beer, so that'll do me. The Golden Grove. There's the blood running through the streets of Stratford. All right. Or if people really object to that, there is Tap East, but it's like a quarter of an hour walk through Westfield. All right, that's it for me. Thank you very much for coming, guys.